Draftkings is really going to make us work this week, Ellie. Pricing is super tight. Finding a good single entry or cash build is pretty difficult. You're going to have to make tough decisions this week for XFL DFS week 5. Let's get into this. What is up, guys? My name is Tyson Smith, joined by Ellie Hernandez. Welcome to the Edge DFS. Ellie, what's going on with you, man? How did you do last week with XFL week 4?
I did pretty good, man. I actually ended up in third in one of the 25-cent jukeboxes. I get pretty engaged into NBA, so I try to play as responsibly as I can for XFL.
Yeah.
When it comes around, but worked out pretty well. I think we learned along with the entire field that you're pretty safe just stacking the fuck out of whoever's playing Orlando, and Orlando showed us, and I think we'll get into it a little bit more today, but Orlando showed us that they do have some offensive pieces that you can run back with. And to be honest with you, I was stacking 3-1 pretty much 100% of the way because we got some late news on the running back position.
Yeah.
So I had to go back and fix all my lineups, and I did 3-1, lucked out and got a lot of 4-1. And that was the primary stack and got pieces from the other games. So ended up working out, man. How'd you do? Did you end up making some money off of that stack correction?
I did not. No. So you're referring to the Brian Hill stack correction. I had a shitload of Brian Hill. So at the end of the day, that would have really hurt me if they got that right. But I did pretty good overall. I focused most of my energy into that 3-3-3 contest. There's like 177 entries that didn't fill. Now we're looking at like a 222 this week with 150 entries. But that 3-3-3 is a great contest. It was 20K to first. I was focusing most of my energy on that. And I profited overall, so that's all you can ask for. I think I profited $500-600, which is great. That's always a good thing. I'm not going to complain. But I thought for a second I had a shot to ship that. Lucky Jackson was my last guy in that last game. I had nobody in front of me that could stop me. Lucky Jackson came out. They just fed him the rock. Like, what did he have? Like 10 fantasy points in the first quarter, and all I needed was 7 more fantasy points to solo ship that 20K. Now that's a lot, obviously, but when you're watching it after the first quarter, the dude gets 10 fantasy points and they feed him like crazy, and then he disappeared the rest of that game. Like I didn't even see him on the field. Now he was out there, but they did not use him. And at the very end, Derek King, which there's no reason they should have thrown the ball. And I was just praying, okay, maybe we get a Lucky Jackson garbage touchdown. It goes to Jaquiz Ezzard, of course. Anyways, there's some tough breaks out there, but hey, I profited, so I'm happy about that. Week 4 was fine. Let's try to get week 5 going. But first, let's just look at the winning lineup from week 4. So this is in the big contest. This is a 50K to first. This week, what is it, 25K? I mean, they're really clamping down on us. But this is the big contest. Ben DiNucci, quarterback. You got Ellison, Gordon, Blake Jackson, Kirkland. Is this right? No, this is not right. This is from a few weeks ago, right? Yeah, this is from a few weeks ago.
I don't think so, man.
Anyways, we'll look at this as we'll look at this in the Discord. We'll post that winning lineup in the Discord. For reviewing that last week, what stuck out to you about that last week overall, and what kind of, like, obviously Hundley not playing, that kind of screwed things up. He wasn't looking super healthy, so they decided to go with Perez. What jumped out to you about last week, and what can we learn from that?
Yeah, man. Look, I think we're just back in a mode where we're reaffirming the importance of game stacks. I really think that if you built 3-1 and then did a 1-1 of Houston played Orlando, the St. Louis game, the one with AJ McCarron, right?
Yeah.
There was a couple different ways that you would have been effective, and even then, I think AJ McCarron was the optimal quarterback. So there were a lot of ways to get there. Ben DiNucci, I think that might be the thing that I out the most. Ben DiNucci, what was he, 45, 50% owned?
Yeah.
And he didn't get there. I think that's why we knew that lineup was incorrect.
Yeah, exactly.
Immediately was because Ben DiNucci was at quarterback, right?
Yeah.
And he didn't get there. We've seen some other people. So I think that's going to come up in this week's conversation too, because guess who's chalky as hell? It's
Ben
our boy
DiNucci.
Ben.
Of course. Where's the sound? Cue the sound.
Ben DiNucci.
So we got to make decisions, man. So let's jump into this. Let's look at the first look for this week. If you guys want a copy of this graphic, I update it throughout the week. But look, we're recording this on Wednesday night. The first game, obviously, is 10:30 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. It's going to be a late night. Obviously, they're competing with NCAA March Madness. So, hey, football is football. And I actually do enjoy having Thursday night games because it just makes Thursday. It basically, you start your awesome football weekend on Thursday. That's always a great thing. But it's going to be a late night. It's going to be a probably 2 a.m. night for us on the East Coast. But this is the most important game that we need to talk about for week 5. Basically, all the ownership is going to come to this game. Your weekend is either made or broken probably right off the bat. We're going to have to really make decisions here. Obviously, I'm going to play Showdown for this, so maybe what I do with Showdown might be a little bit different with my main. Whatever I'm doing on my main slate might be slightly different than my Showdown. But what are your thoughts here, man? This is a 41.5 total in Seattle. Houston going into Seattle. Houston's 4-0. Seattle's 2-2. These are probably two of the most entertaining teams. You got, June Jones and AJ Smith. These are two great offenses. The best offensive players in the league playing together on the same field. It's going to be a great game. But what do we think about this, man? Houston, their defense, look, let's just be honest, man. They haven't played anybody this year. They're a great team. I think they're the best team in the league. But they played Orlando twice. They played the Renegades, and they played the Brahmas. They haven't really been threatened on the other side of the ball. Nothing compared to what we'll see with Seattle, right?
Yeah, man. I think you're right on. I think that's something we need to take into consideration this week. But for me, I'm just looking at it as at the ownership that's still expected to come into Ben DiNucci and Seattle Sea Dragons. I think this is probably one of the most important games that we need because it's going to be chalky from Ben DiNucci in a stacking standpoint. And then you're going to have one-offs like Dontrell or Kirkland, and then what's his name? Burnett. What's his first name? I just think of David Burnett from the pitcher from the Marlins in like 2002. Anyways, don't worry about it, guys.
Deontay Burnett.
Yeah. So look, you're gonna have one-offs. It's gonna be popular. I think the easiest way to approach this game is just forcing a 1-1 stack. There's other games that I just want to get to. I don't mind getting a little bit of Brandon Silvers in some 2-1, 3-1, maybe get some stacks going to that offense. I do think they're going to get forgot about a little bit in GPP. But yeah, man, like Ben DiNucci, if he's going to continue to come in over 35% owned, especially at that price tag, like they just have to pay off. All of their guys have to pay off. But if I'm only taking Pearson, then, if he gets 14 points or if he only gets 10 points, I'm not completely dead in the water. But I didn't spend up for one part of an offense that didn't get me there. So I think you go 1v1 in this game and then kind of target some of these other games, probably the middle two. I don't know if I want much of the last one.
Yeah, man. I mean, this game is going to have such heavy high ownership. I think for single entries or for higher dollar, smaller contests, I'm going to be targeting this game quite a bit. And then I might sort of limit how much I get from this game for my tournaments, because as you're going to see when we start building and we start looking at these prices, everybody's expensive in this game. It is so difficult. We don't really have any value at this moment. We don't really know who's going to be out. We have some injury news to talk about here in a second, but there's really not a clear cut like, boom, this guy at 4K is going to start and get most of the snaps. There's none of that this week. We're going to have to get lucky. So this game is crazy to me. This game's tough. I think Seattle can win this game. Houston's favored by 3.5. It's a 41.5 point total. This to me, man, I feel like you gotta get one-offs. You gotta get a little mini stack going, like Pearson, Burnett, or Blake Jackson and Kirkland. Do that. But man, it's just going to be very difficult overall to stack this game and feel good about yourself coming out of this game going into Saturday. Anything else to talk about here? Because this is by far the most important important game on the slate. Do you feel like fading this game? Like, do you think that's a good strategy for tournaments?
Yeah, I think you can fade Seattle. I don't know if you necessarily want to do it, just because the amount of volume that comes in that offense. But I do think it is an interesting strategy. And think about how much leverage you're getting just by not playing Pendanucci in his stacks. Like, it's crazy because you want Pearson, you want Gordon. Like, I mean, you might even be able to just fade those three and play Blake Jackson as much as you want. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think something like that might be fine. But yeah, man, I think you can get Houston. They're priced nicely, but the Sea Dragons, their offensive pieces are just so damn expensive that you need to take one-offs, or I don't know, be weird with it. I'm probably just gonna fade Ben DiNucci 100%, and then just take pieces from here.
Well, earlier in the year, like these top end quarterbacks were just so much better than all the other quarterbacks. Now that we're about halfway through the season, we've started to see some of these offenses actually kind of like, hey, like we're a real team now. We can throw the ball. We can actually not have a ton of penalties. Our offensive line looks a little bit better. So I think there's opportunity to, like you said, instead of paying up like over 11,000 for Ben DiNucci, maybe just grab somebody else from one of these other games and then get the studs in. All right, so the next game here is DC Defenders. Is a rematch going into St. Louis this time. Defenders are favored here. They're 4-0. This is 42 total, so tied for the highest total on the slate. DC is favored by 2 points. St. Louis, they may sell out 40,000+ this week. That team does not have an NFL team. They're excited when it comes to their fans are absolutely excited when it comes to kind of semi-pro football here. I think that gives them a big advantage, and we saw it last week. We saw them win that game. I think it really helps them out. I feel like, to me, the DC Defenders are a good team, but I feel like they're slightly overrated. Do you agree with me?
I do. I don't know how long that dual quarterback thing is going to work, right? Because as soon as you get a team that's willing just to overcommit to stopping the run, like I think that their team is a little bit in trouble. Like, they'll have an opportunity to be exposed.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the stack price though for the Defenders with Te'amu, now obviously if you wanted to go with D'Eriq King, you could do that too, but I would stack it differently, obviously. But with Te'amu, you can get Hammond, Jackson, you can get Blair. That's a pretty decent for a team that has basically the second highest total or around that on the slate. Their stack prices are pretty low, and you probably won't see a ton of Te'amu and Hammond or Te'amu Lucky Jackson stacks. I don't think I'm going to go too crazy with stacking with around Te'amu. Maybe I do D'Eriq King and Abram Smith together or something weird like that. It seems to have kind of worked out in the past. But what do you think about St. Louis here, man? Aitman is out again, so we got Butler, we got Shepard. Now Shepard last week I thought was a great play, and I went heavy on him. You got Hill, you got Prohl, you got so many dudes on St. Louis that you want to get to. But how can you get to them if you're stacking dudes from that first game?
This is where we got to go back to that targeting other quarterbacks, because I am with you, man. Like, I do think the Defenders do have an opportunity to get exposed if someone commits to stopping the run, but they're 4-0 for a reason. So I like their quarterbacks. I think you can stack them at mid price, and I think you can do a run back, and vice versa with AJ McCarron, Akeem Butler. Whatever you want, run it back with Lucky Jackson. And there's something interesting. These two teams both are top 2 in conversions, right? So the Defenders, they have 6 2-point conversions on the year, 1 point. Battlehawks have 1 3-point, 4 2 points, and 1 point. Like, those points, those additional points, they do add up. And because their offense, like, imagine that AJ McCarron getting an additional 8 points in one game because he has 4 2-point conversions. It's just like a normal 2-point conversion in NFL, right?
Yeah.
The receiver gets it, the quarterback gets it. So those little points, those add up. So, like, that's something I think you take into account. So, like, DC, I think even, Derek King might be in play again. Like if you want to run some naked, I don't know if he's going to come out and get 2 rushing touchdowns and a passing touchdown, but if he gets 2 rushing touchdowns or 1 rushing touchdown and they bring him in for 2-point conversions and converge, right? That's a lot of points, and that stuff you need to account for. So look, man, this is where I'm going with my Ben DiNucci. 35%, you guys can have that. I'll take, 20% McCarron stacks and 15% DC stacks.
Yeah, I love it, dude. I think this is a good game to target. It's in the dome. Battlehawks defense is in play again. DC Defenders defense is in play again. I think this is a good game to target, especially with that total. So let's get to another game. This is probably the game that I'm most excited about. This is kind of the toilet bowl here, man. But both of these teams are 0-4. You got Orlando going into Vegas, playing on the intramural field. Hopefully this week the weather is actually halfway decent for Vegas. It kind of bad weather follows them around. But look, the Orlando Guardians 0-4 is a lot different than the Vegas Vipers 0-4. Vegas Vipers are the unluckiest team. Hey, Vegas, they're unlucky. They've just everything has gone wrong for them. I think the coaching staff is good. Their offense is good. Their defense not so much. But they're not that bad of a team. I think that Brahmas and Renegades are a worse team overall. But hey, they're 0-4. I think the Vipers can win this game. But man, I'm super excited to actually. Well, I don't know if excited is the right word, but I'm interested in doing stacks with both of these teams with run backs. Orlando Guardians, look, last week against Houston, they've had a tough schedule, by the way. Orlando Guardians have had a tough schedule, and it's been, trial by fire for them. Like, they've moved on from different offensive coordinators and things like that. But at this point in the year, it seems like Paxton Lynch has kind of found his footing. He's put up 2 decent games back to back. They're losing still, but it feels like to me this is like a competent team at this point. You have great, cheap options. They're going to throw the ball 30-plus times. The Vegas Vipers defense has given up the most yards this year, the most points. Like, they're not a good defense at all. So me, personally, I'm looking at Paxton Lynch stacks. I'm looking at Hundley stacks. I know that people are going to be a little bit scared away from Hundley because of what happened last week. But look, we've got some practice reports out so far. This is Wednesday night. He's practiced all this week. He looks to be okay. If he comes out and he's looking, a little timid and he looks like that thigh is giving him some problems, then maybe they go back to, Perez. But I'm willing to risk it. I'm willing to risk a lot of Hundley, and especially in like these single entries and cash, he just fits. He fits well at his pricing. So what do you think here, man? By the way, it's a 42 total, and it's a 7.5-point favors for Vegas. So what do you think here, man?
This is going to be a bit of speculation on my part, but look, I think Brett Hundley and the Vegas Vipers, right? They kind of got to be the key to cash for right now. And kind of my thinking here is obviously everyone wants to play against the Orlando Guardians. There's a certain amount of points they're probably going to get, but here's the other side of that, right? Like if you're playing him in cash, then you don't necessarily have to worry about that potential downside in GPP. You can kind of fade him. And that's where I think, they become a little bit more interesting to me. Like, I think that's a scenario that could play out. People don't necessarily want to risk playing him in GPP because they're playing him in cash, where he's priced nicely, man. The offense is priced nicely. Sweeting is still priced nice. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's still pieces here that I think you can stack with. And again, we saw it. Orlando has pieces that you can run him back with. I mean, I made sure I got some Rambo last week. Nobody wanted to play him because he wasn't doing well. Yeah. I took pieces back, forced the run back there. And, there were 10, 15 points to be had with those wide receivers. I think one at 18, right? So, I like it. And I think you can go the other way too. Paxton Lynch, again, he's going to come in probably pretty low owned, under 15%. And he's priced nicely with some decent pieces that he seemed to find some rhythm with, right? So one of these teams has to win the game. I think that this could be sloppy, which like think Jameis Winston type scoring, like something like that. So that also means, these defenses are in play. You could luck into 2 pick sixes, a fumble recovery, whatever, scoop and score.
Yeah.
I think I'll be targeting these last 2 games, Guardians, Vipers, and then Renegades, Brahmas for a defensive perspective.
Yeah, totally agree. Orlando is the place to go for value because we've seen them over the past like 4 weeks. I think all 4 weeks, maybe minus one, we saw at least one Orlando Guardian. Well, I guess it was pretty much Latimer at this point. But, Rambo went off. They throw the ball a lot. They're going to be probably losing in this game. So you're going to have to keep an eye on this. Now, one thing to mention here with Lynch, Francois is probably going to be out with a concussion. We've got Quentin Flowers, who was signed a few weeks ago. We could see Quentin Flowers rotate in here. The Vegas Vipers have been absolutely annihilated by the DC Defenders twice with the quarterback runs this year. You could end up seeing Quentin Flowers on goal line opportunities. You could see like a touchdown out of Quentin Flowers. You could see, a couple of extra points, 2-pointers scored by him. So keep an eye on that. That's one thing that kind of worries me about going heavy on Paxton Lynch. But I'm still going to get plenty of him. All right, so last game here, Arlington Renegades going into San Antonio. All this should be fine, like as far as there's going to be value here to look at. We're still waiting on news about Vasher, but, this... Overall, you got Devion Smith, you got Canella, Vaughns, you got Tolliver, who's going to be good value this week. And if you look at that stack overall with Cone, 17.5K for that stack is pretty nice. They're favored at home, -3 favorites, but look at the total is 35. This is not looking too... It's not looking too spicy when it comes to stacking or getting heavy on this game, which makes me very interested in tournaments. Because one thing to mention here, the Brahmas, they moved on from their offensive coordinator. They got a new guy. So I don't know. I'm pretty sure as of now, Cone's going to be the starter. But, there's a chance on a Wednesday night that I'm kind of making sure that Reed Sinnett doesn't get the start. I don't know what's going to happen. Keep an eye on that. But as of now, man, you got to look to get value out of this game as well. And there's going to be no ownership here. This is not the late night hammer at all.
Yeah, so look, I think this is an interesting time to kind of bring up just overall building strategy, right? So if you're doing even hand building and just doing a couple bullets or, doing MME, this is where I think you focus on building for the first game. And then what I'll do is I'll actually have some reserved ownership. I'll have stacks that force these 2 quarterbacks in just in case we get some news throughout the weekend, right? Now, what I'll do Saturday night or before the last 2 games start, maybe I'll make some other decisions and update my lineups and do some late swap. But I want to save some spots for these last 2 games because you're exactly right. What if we do get the backup quarterback starting at a min price? Like from there, you can actually go and pay up for every stud on the slate without really having to punt, right?
Yeah,
so that's something that you're going to need to do, even if it's just a naked quarterback, right? So I'll save some lineups. If you're hand building, you only have 1 or 2 lineups, then maybe find some value that you like and be willing to throw that in the flex so that you can swap off if something else pops up.
I like Tolliver for cash. Canella is always a cash option. Vaughn's as well. All right, let's quickly look at the injuries that we have as of now on a Wednesday night. Martavis Bryant, look, on DK's app, it says questionable, but we don't have official questionables here. With it being so spread out, you're not going to get a lot of injury news until after the slate locks, most likely. But for now, I'm just kind of guessing on these. Martavis Bryant, he probably is not going to play. He's DMP on Tuesday, DMP on Wednesday, which looks good for Sweeting, looks good for more Badette. To me, Badette is the guy I want because of his floor and his ceiling. So Martavis Bryant, he probably is not going to play, but I have no clue as of now. Brett Hundley is on the injury report. He full practice on Tuesday, full practice on Wednesday. He should be good to go. If he is good to go, he will play the whole game, unless he's just absolutely looking terrible. But they're paying this guy a lot of money. They're going to want to put him in the game. Francois, I don't know why I have running back there. Sorry. I guess he kind of is a running back. For Orlando, he's got a concussion. He's probably not going to play, which is why we brought up Flowers. Raquel Armstead, he's a DMP on Tuesday. He's got a calf injury. That opens things up for Abram Smith a lot more, and maybe we find some value with another backup DC, or maybe they just run the ball more with the quarterback. I don't know, but that's something to keep an eye on with Armstead. Morgan Ellison, to me, is the biggest injury news here, because most likely this dude's going to play. I mean, this guy is a violent runner. He's the best running back in the league, in my opinion. He's incredible. Dude played like basically 2.5 games this year. He wasn't even the starter to coming into this, and he's already the best running back in the league to me. He's a DMP on Monday, limited Tuesday. I think he'll play if I had to guess. This guy, but he falls hard though, man. When you're watching him play, it feels like every single time this guy touches the ball, I'm worried he's going to be out the rest of the game. Somehow he finds a way to get back in the game. TJ Vasher for San Antonio, shoulder questionable. He was limited on Wednesday. What jumps out to you here, man? What are we focused on? It feels like Morgan Ellison news. If he's out, that changes the whole slate, because we got TJ Hammonds to play and we got other guys to play, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously Bryant's huge. If he doesn't play, then that just guarantees some targets for other people. And then Ellison for sure, man. I mean, he's priced nicely still, so if he plays, I want a lot of him. If he doesn't, then I think his backups come into play again. But we'll see as we get throughout the weekend. And if you guys just keep an eye on the Discord, Tyson's pretty good with updates on the injuries as we go through that throughout the week. So you can get more information up to date in there.
Yeah. Join that Discord. It's in the description below, or as you'll see, you can scan that QR code if you're watching on your TV. Let's get into this breakdown, man. Let's just do it. Break it down. All right, so we're going to go position by position. We'll run through this really quick. We've already sort of talked a lot about these different stacks and things like that, but we want to talk about actual salary and talk about some of these sleeper plays that we are thinking about playing this week, because you're going to have to find some value. So look, Ben DiNucci's 11.3K, McCarron 10.8, Brandon Silver's 10.2, and Brett Hundley's 9,700. Those are like the core top end dudes that I'm going to have a lot of. Probably not as much Ben DiNucci this week. We'll see. If we get some value. What are your thoughts here, man? These top end dudes, to me, Hundley is, people are going to be scared away from him because of what happened last week with him. I think you just got to go all in on him again. In my opinion, I'm going to play him in my high dollar, the 222 probably. And look, Badet is the perfect guy to pair with him. Badet's like the guy I want in almost all of my lineups going against Orlando. So what else are we thinking here, man? Silver seems to be the safest play, but who knows, man? That Seattle defense is not bad. They actually are a pretty decent defense.
Yeah, man. So I think overall, Brett Hundley is probably my favorite play. He'll probably be my highest exposed quarterback. But after that, man, I want my exposure to Brandon Silvers at 10-2. I want my stacks with AJ McCarron. You guys already know my stance on Ben DiNucci. I'm just not going to play him. I think there's better guys to get to. And I'm going to rotate in some exposure to these other guys, Jordan Ta'amu. I did have, before we got the running back news last week, I did have some lineups built specifically for, DC running quarterback situations. So yeah. I'll have exposure to Derek Keene naked or even stacked with running backs or wide receiver, man. The offense still got enough points that it didn't necessarily need to correlate with him and the others. Mm-hmm. And then, look, man, like you're talking about some of these sleeper guys or some of these cheaper guys. Like I think Paxton Lynch is very much in play, man.
Yes.
At 8K, right? Like they're starting to get a little bit of a rhythm. Las Vegas is 0-4 too, and I know Orlando's gotten the shit kicked out of them, but he's putting up the points, and this is an opportunity for him to get right, and this offense to go get the first win. So I like him. I don't think he's going to be more than 10% owned. So I think he can get 15, 20%, man, be double the field and have a pretty nice exposure to a guy who's going to probably get 15, 16 fantasy points.
Yeah. And I think Quentin Flowers here at 6K, just keep an eye on him. Maybe like 1 or 2. He's like the De'Aaron King from week 2. There's, except for there's a much bigger question mark. So nobody's going to play Quentin Flowers, especially if DeAndre Francois is out. Then you got to think about maybe if you're doing a 150 max or you're doing a handful of 20 maxes, sprinkle Quentin Flowers in naked or with Latimer or something. It doesn't need to correlate. I just think that he's going to run the ball and he's going to get opportunity in the red zone. They're a bad red zone team and they cannot convert those extra points, Orlando. They can't. So they're going to try something new this game, and I guarantee it's going to involve Flowers. That's just my opinion. So you can get like 12 fantasy points out of a dude that's like 6,000. It might allow you to really stack up all these other games and just play him naked. Reed Sinnett, keep an eye on him. I don't think he's going to start, but the San Antonio offense has underperformed, and they moved on from their offensive coordinator. They've upgraded another guy. So does that come along with Cone? I don't think so this week. Maybe he gets another week. But if he has a bad week and they don't win this, you might see Sinnett playing next week. Let's go to running backs. So this is the hardest. This is really the hardest position for me to figure out this week. There's no value as of now. No value that I'm comfortable with. Max Borghi is obviously a good play. He's 9,300. You just can't fit him in with any of these expensive stacks. You cannot. If you play a high-end running back this week, you're going to have to make tough decisions. You're going to have to fade Kirkland in that lineup. You're going to have to not play Pearson. You're going to not play DiNucci. You're going to have to kind of like not have a very solid lineup when it comes to wide receivers. We've seen these running backs. They are important to pick the right guy. We saw Brian Hill last week. He did well. But, when it comes to these running backs, I would rather, in my opinion, try to find some of these punt plays. We've got some dudes to talk about here, but like, what's your thoughts on these high-end dudes? Abram Smith is at 8,800. If Raquel Armstead is out, he's going to be popular. Brian Hill's going to be popular again. Balaj, probably not popular, but he's 7,800. And then you got Devion Smith at 7,500, and then Morgan Ellison at 7K. To me, is like the bottom end. Like, if you're trying to find running backs, you kind of have to look at Morgan Ellison or above this week, unless we get some news. So how are you handling this?
So I think I'm going to limit my exposure to Max Borghi. I don't know if I'm going to have any of them, to be completely honest with you. I do like a little bit of Abram Smith just to get in stacks with that offense. We know DC likes to run the ball, but I think my kind of sweet spot here is Brian Hill, Kalen Balaj, and Devion Smith, unless we get some additional information. So Balaj and Smith, they both have the same amount of targets on the year as Max Borghi. And I know Max missed a game, so it's a little bit, conflated. But at the same time, like that price difference does matter here. So if I'm looking for something with a little bit more safe floor, I think I'm looking at Devion Smith or Kalen Balaj. I don't mind Brian Hill. If Morgan Ellison plays, I think he's probably one of the guys I'm going to have a lot of exposure to, just because he's nice at that 7K mark. But outside of that, man, like, we got to drop all the way down to like the 3K line, right?
Yeah, yep.
I don't even remember what the dude's name is, but where was he at?
Darrington is the guy that we need to talk about.
Yeah, Devin Darrington for Orlando, right, at 3K. Like, he's getting some pretty decent exposure or projected ownership on several sites. And at 3K, if he's going to get a decent amount of work, I don't mind him, especially in cash builds for right now. Like, that might be the best way to go. Kind of go with stars and scrubs type build, so that you can kind of force in some of these other pieces that we want to get to at wide receiver. But otherwise, man, you're kind of stuck at middling here, and then you're going to have to punt somewhere else, wide receiver or tight end.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, if TJ Hammonds, if for whatever reason Morgan Ellison doesn't play, I think he will, but who knows? TJ Hammonds is a good option, but we also need to talk about Darius Bradwell, who was brought in. We were hyper aware of this last week when Hammonds was like really questionable. We didn't think he was going to play. So does Bradwell get the bulk of those snaps, and then you see TJ Hammonds come in on third down and maybe get like 3 or 4 targets in this game? At 3,200, it still might be worth it. But Darrington, to me right now, he had 12 carries for 40 yards. He had a couple targets last week. Orlando's probably going to be down in this game. Most likely. They're going to be throwing the ball a lot. Darrington might be the guy. I mean, they just haven't been committed to Jermaine Martin for whatever reason. He looks pretty good, but he's not the kind of guy that you're going to, run out there if you're down by 20 points. Seems to me like Darrington's that guy. And at 3K, the bare minimum, man, I really, really hope that this guy gets opportunity, because I might be way over the field on him because he allows all of your stud wide receiver builds to work, because there's, like last week we were playing some Reichwell Armstead. And now I don't love Reichwell Armstead, but he's on a team that runs the ball a shitload, and he was cheaper. He was like 4,400 or 4,200. The pricing was a little bit looser, so he just fit. And I'm not finding that guy this week so far. So we got to keep an eye on news. Keep an eye on the news throughout the whole weekend, man, because there could be opportunities for late swaps with any sort of news that comes out. All right, let's go to wide receiver. So this is, look, wide receiver, to get the studs, in my opinion, Ja'Cory Pearson's 11K. He's going to be hard to fit in, because you got guys like Josh Gordon at 10.9K. Now, to me, Josh Gordon is not one of my favorite plays. He's boom or bust. I'm going to have a lot of him in tournaments. I'm not playing him in this $222 lineup that I'm doing. Jontre Kirkland at 10.1K. Badette, Deontay Burnett, he's 9,600. Hakeem Butler, 9,300. Blake Jackson is 8,500. Those are absolute studs that you just got to get in. To me, what it felt like to me, I was ended up a lot. If I wanted to play Kirkland, I kind of had to go to Blake Jackson. Pearson, I could probably get down. I probably have to go with Burnett, or just not play a Houston wide receiver. I think it's kind of interesting to me. This is probably stupid, but I think this week you can be under the field on Seattle wide receivers now, or you have to make the decision to be under the field on Houston wide receivers. I just don't know the right play, but I might just slightly be under the field on guys like Pearson and Gordon, and be over the field on Blake Jackson. So what do we do with these Seattle and Houston guys, like the top end dudes? You have to have at least one or two of these dudes in your lineup, because look, to me, I want Badette in most of my lineups at 9,800. So you're gonna have to make tough decisions here, right?
Yeah, man. I think you're right on. I've already talked about my disdain for Ben DiNucci, for lack of a better term, on this slate. So I'm already probably only getting one of the Seattle wide receivers. Now, I don't know how much Pearson or Gordon I'm going to necessarily get to. Again, Blake Jackson just continues to be priced nice. And at 11,000, at 10,900 for these other two, they have to get a touchdown. They have to get 80 yards and 7 receptions. They need 15 plus fantasy points. And I'm not 100% confident. Now, as one-offs, that's fine, right? I'll get some exposure to Pearson and Gordon. I'm maybe with the field probably a little bit under. I still think that you're better off just going down to Kirkland, Badette, even Burnett, and Hakeem Butler, right? So I think you get pieces. I'm going to have a lot more Blake Jackson than I do of Pearson and Gordon, but literally everything in between. Everything on the screen down from Kirkland. I like Rambo. I like Burnett. I like Badette. And again, like I said, I like their quarterbacks too. So I'm going to be building them all as part of stacks with runbacks.
Yeah, so look, Charleston Rambo's 8,100. He's been pretty expensive the whole year, because look, he hasn't been targeted nearly as much. He finally broke out with a big play last week, a huge touchdown. But look, Rambo's third in the XFL in routes run behind Blake Jackson and Pearson. He's on the field almost every single play. They're just not looking his way. Finally, they're starting to look his way. So at 8,100, I don't think he's going to be super high owned, because you're going to have to sacrifice all these, you're going to have to sacrifice a couple of these stud dudes in order to get him, and he's just not appealing. So to me, Rambo's a good tournament option. I'm not touching him in anything else. But look, Shepard, what are your thoughts on Allison here? Because Martavis Bryant probably not going to play. Does Allison get the run, or it's probably a Sidney Sweeney sort of night, right?
Yeah, man, I still don't think Sidney Sweeney's priced right, just given what we've seen from him. He is getting involved in the offense a lot. And, again, Vegas is starting to get a little bit more comfortable with what they're doing out there. So I like him. Again, he's going to be one of the staples of my builds this week at 5,300. He's priced very nicely. He has extreme upside. And I think it's just as likely that he gets the same amount of points that Pearson does on a consistent basis, to be completely honest with you. I don't think the gap is as wide as the pricing has it.
So Travell Harris here, he had a great week last week, but a guy that I like from Houston is Cedric Byrd. He's actually pretty interesting. If you look at his output here, he's what is he? He's 4,400, man. We need value. And this guy on an incredible offense is going to throw the ball a ton. Cedric Byrd is a guy that gets involved. He's got the same amount of receptions as Kirkland, and he's got more receptions than Burnett. And he's got half the snaps and half the routes run. So when he's on the field, Cedric Byrd is getting involved. You see 7 targets, three targets, 2 targets. Not incredible, but last week was 7. Why does it say they lost that week? That doesn't make sense. Anyways, I'm not super confident in these stats here. But my point here is Cedric Byrd is interesting. Who else jumps out to you as some randoms? I mean, we got to talk about. Where's he at? Where's my boy at here? Where is he? Jalen Tolliver. There he is. To me, Jalen Tolliver at his price, he's the go-to guy on this team. There's injuries going on with San Antonio. He's 6,600. To me, I like him as a cash play. And then, there's other dudes like Lance Lenore at 3,300. What are you thinking for value here?
Yeah, I like Lance, man. I know some sites are giving him some pretty decent ownership. But even then, man, like you have 3 guys right there that I think you can probably be equally exposed to, all for Orlando. I don't know Dedrick Thomas has necessarily got the same upside as Lance Lenoir, LL.
Lenore,
Cool
Lenore.
J over here. But look, still get Eli Rogers at 3,400, right? I think he only had like 5 or 6 points last week, but again, the offense was starting to get a little bit more consistent. As they get better, we could see more opportunities go to any one of these guys. So, look, I think Orlando's wide receivers, they have Charleston Rambo at 8,100, and then everybody else is 3,500 or below.
Yeah,
right? Like, play them. That's fine value. They're going to have plenty of run. And to be honest with you, I don't see any reason other than the cheap running back. There's no reason any of these value plays should be getting more than 15% projected ownership, right? You shouldn't be that confident in them. Maybe Lance, but again, I'm not 100% sure that he's going to go he shouldn't be 25% owned.
So this week, looking at Josh Hammond for DC, and obviously Lucky Jackson to me is like, is a great play, but we kind of saw he just fell off in that game. I don't know if that's a trend, or I don't know if that's just by accident, or there's a matchup thing that they just did not look his way once after that first quarter. When it comes to you got Chris Blair and Josh Hammond for DC, those are guys that I'm actually more interested in than Lucky Jackson this week. I'm not trying to just be last week based off of 1 week, but just looking at the numbers. Both of these dudes, Blair and Hammond, are top 7 in total snaps this year. Hammond has more targets and receptions, but these guys are on the field a lot more than Lucky Jackson. So to me, if I'm doing any DC stacks, I'm probably going to get 1 pass catcher, and Hammond and Blair are interesting. I'm still going to get Lucky Jackson, though. I mean, come on. You just got to try it. All right, so let's go to tight end here. There's not a whole lot to talk about, thankfully. Sal Cannella, he's always an option. He's the number 1 pass catcher on this team. Him and Kyle Slaughter, they have a history. Sal Cannella is probably going to get you 10 fantasy points. He could get you up to 20 potentially, but most likely he's probably going to be right in that 10 to 15 point range at 7,600. He's a solid floor guy. He's going to get 6-7 targets or whatever it is a game. So you can't forget about him. But I think his ownership is going to just start collapsing week after week after week until he has a big week, because all these big-time wide receivers are just getting more expensive. Cody Latimer, 6K. Oh, man. I love me some Cody Latimer this week. Going up against Vegas. Vegas is going to give up yards. They're going to give up yards, and Cody Latimer is by far the number 1 dude on this team. They're running him in the slot. He's not a tight end. They're using him in the slot. We saw a tight end catch a touchdown, an actual tight end catch a touchdown in that game last week in that long pass. I forgot his name. Besides that, you got Elise Mack at 3,500. I'm interested in him. He's one of the top targeted tight ends, and he's actually on the field a lot, and he works good with this offense for San Antonio, but I'm not super interested in him this week. I got 2 dudes here, Cannella, Latimer. Those are probably the only guys I'm touching. Do you agree?
Yeah, I like Mac though, 3,500 if I needed to punt. Otherwise, I'd rather just pay up or not play any tight end whatsoever.
All right, let's go to defense. So, man, you'd think, okay, who does Orlando play? Vegas. Yeah, let's just lock them in. I don't think that's the situation this week. I think a lot of points are going to be scored in that Vegas Orlando game, but there's room for mistakes. There's going to be turnovers. There's going to be fumbles. There's going to be weird stuff that happens. We've seen it. So you could sprinkle in those guys. I think Vegas at 4K is pretty decent, but I'd rather go with the Brahmas at 3,900. Shit, I'd rather go with the Sea Dragons at 3,800. I know that sounds crazy, but the Sea Dragons defense is not bad. Maybe they make Houston work for it this week, because Houston just has not played good offenses yet. We haven't really seen them prove themselves against a good offense and stopping them. So what do we do here, man? Like last week we had, the Roughnecks against Orlando. They were the highest scoring. They had 15 fantasy points, but they were like $700 or $800 more expensive than the Battlehawks, and the Battlehawks got you 13 fantasy points. So I think you got to look in the Battlehawks direction again a little bit, but Brahmas at 3,900 going up against Arlington is just not. That's probably the way to go, right? At 3,900.
Yeah, man. I think that's fine. I even think that you can consider getting a little bit of the Orlando Guardians at 3,600. I think it's a real possibility they end up with a pick six if I'm recovering for a touchdown. We're seeing it every week. There's a defense that's going to score a touchdown. And if you're paying 5K for a defense like the Renegades, for example, you need them to score a touchdown. Otherwise, it's going to be one of these middling defenses. And I think all of those are in play. I even think the Battlehawks and Defenders are in play. But just given their pricing and they're the second highest total on the slate, I think. No, I really think you need to consider really the Brahmas. Brahmas, probably the Vipers are in play. But I don't mind the Guardians for a pure punt, man.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to need every dollar, man. I'm telling you, like the builds are just so tight. Going down to the Guardians, yeah, there's probably going to be some points scored here, but the Guardians can give up 30 points and get you 9-10 fantasy points with a pick six and a couple sacks, so that saving you $200-300 could be the difference between getting some dude that doesn't even see the field and some guy that might get you 4 or 5 targets. That could be worth it. To me, I'm going to spread my exposure out across all these teams. The team I'm not interested in the Renegades again as a defense. That's just me personally. They're 5K. I know that it's a pretty decent matchup against San Antonio, but look, in my opinion, San Antonio with Cone getting a new offensive coordinator, maybe this jump starts them and maybe they have like a pretty decent day. I think San Antonio will win that game. Renegades to me are the second worst team in the league. They're just blah. So why pay 5K for a defense when you need all the salary you can possibly get? Now, it's probably going to bite me in the ass, of course. Maybe Arlington gets 2 pick sixes or something, but they're so high priced. I just can't do it. All right. So let's talk about our stacks and value. We've already kind of talked about this a little bit, but what's your favorite stack for tournaments? And if you're looking at, cashy sort of single entry, one of these higher dollar entry, what are you thinking for your favorite stack for that?
Well, I think really the first piece is going to come down to Brett Hundley, man. Like, I really just want to see where his ownership kind of ends up at. If he's projected to be chalky for cash, and I really just think people are going to kind of shy away from him in GPP, man. So I like getting just Brett Hundley stacked up with really anybody. Take him with Badette, Sidney Sweetie, run 3. And run it back with somebody from Orlando, man. I think you can get Rambo, Thomas, Eli Rogers, Lance Noir. It doesn't matter to me. I'm going to have a bunch of that stack, and I think it's going to be fine for GPP. But the other one, man, is I just think people are going to kind of forget about Houston again. And I know they haven't really been tested, but that game's probably going to be a shootout more than anything else. So I think you can get some Brandon Silver stacks for GPP in that game. Otherwise, I'd prefer just to get 1v1s in that.
Yeah, I think that Orlando Vipers game I'm going to be heavily involved with, both in that $222 entry or single entry, whatever you want to call it, and in tournaments. And from both sides of the ball, it's going to be game stack. I'm going to create rules where I have a minimum of 1 run back, depending on the quarterback. If you're going Paxton Lynch, with Latimer and Rambo, or maybe you just go Latimer and then you run 2 back from the Vipers. You can get weird with that kind of shit, and that game is those defenses are not good. So we're gonna see points scored, and like you said, it's like a Jameis Winston type stack. Like it's gonna get ugly. It's like it's like what with some of these NBA stacks that we've been doing lately, where you just go heavy on Washington or Detroit. It's just a bunch of garbage dudes just getting garbage time points, and this is kind of similar to that. When it comes to value, who's your favorite value pick for this?
Right now it's Dimebag Daryl Darrington, and then who was Lance Noir, whatever his name is, and we'll figure it out. But obviously, the guys at 3K that are probably going to get a lot of run and projected decently well right now. If anything else opens, I mean, again, don't shy away from this $4,600 range too. I mean, last week it was Lucky Jackson. This week I can't remember his name. We saw another guy. He'll come up when we start building, but like there's some decent guys that are going to get. Yeah, they're going to get some decent runs. So that is also value, guys. Don't forget.
Yeah, Cedric Bird is nice at 4,400 just because when he's on the field, he gets involved. I know he's like the 4th option there, but that offense is going to throw the ball a lot. I agree with you. Dimebag Daryl. We're going to call him... where the hell is he? I keep losing him. Where is he? What's his
Orlando.
price? What's his price?
3K.
Yeah, Devin Darrington. There he is. Jeez, he's just buried. He's 3K. He's bare minimum. So, look, you don't need 15 fantasy points out of him. You need 6 or 7, and as long as you nail the studs that you go along with him, you don't need what Morgan Ellison will give you at 7K. He's bare minimum 3K. So if it's really true, and we start to see as the week goes along, if it's really true that he's, being projected the way he is now, I'm super interested in him, as well as Lance Lenoir. All right, let's go to our lineup builds here. So I feel like we should build our tournament lineup together, our sort of cash build together. Let's start with that, and then we'll go with our tournament builds. So if it's your first time checking us out, we appreciate you guys. Join that Discord. It's really worth it. It's free. There's a lot of great guys in there talking strategy, and we're always posting news. We're always posting stuff that's happening with the XFL. It's hard to find information with the XFL, and instead of scrolling through Twitter and trying to find a bunch of information, just jump in the Discord. It's free. We're putting everything in there. I'm putting together graphics, updating injuries, things like that. So check it out. And if you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button. Help us out here. Let's get us to 50 likes on this video. We really appreciate it. We're posting the video a little bit later in the week. Thursday morning at minimum is when you're seeing this, and there's a 10:30 p.m. game on Thursday night. I'm not going to do a show earlier than that because we just don't have any information on injuries, and there's just no point in even doing a show. It'd be like doing a noon NBA show. There's just no point in doing it. All right, let's build this is the lineup that I'm going to reserve in the 222. Now, it's probably going to change, but as of now, with no news and things like that, this is the lineup I want to build together. And Ellie, I want to get your input on a build for you. So this is a safer sort of build. We don't need to get crazy. We don't need to get crazy with a 2% owned guy or something like that. So for me, I'm going Hundley. I'm embracing the fact I think he's healthy, and as long as he's healthy, I think he stays in the game, and he's going against Orlando. I'm pairing him with Badet because Badet is him and Pearson are the most solid dudes you can always rely on most likely to get these targets, to get at least 15 fantasy points. From there, look, I'm just going to plug in, as of right now, I'm plugging in Darrington because I think you have to punt at the running back spot. Because if you go with Abram Smith or Brian Hill, you're going to have to leave out Pearson. You're going to have to leave out Kirkland. You're going to have to go with the middle of the road rest of your roster, and I just don't want to do that. I want to focus on these high PPR, high floor dudes. So next, I'm going Pearson. Now, where are we going here, man? Let me plug in my Brahmas defense. So from here, what are you thinking, man? I think we probably got to get a Houston guy in here, right? Or can we? Or Latimer is probably the way to go here, right?
Yeah, I like Latimer here.
All right, let's plug in Latimer and let's see what that gets us. 6,600. So, dude, that's perfect. This is perfect for Tolliver. Tolliver's solid, and he's clearly the number one dude on the team. And with Vasher out, I think he's a solid pick at 6.6K. He's has the highest floor and ceiling for a dude at that price. Minus Latimer. So for me, this feels like a solid build. Now we're missing Houston wide receivers. So if you want to switch out Badet or Pearson, I probably would switch out Pearson and put in Kirkland here or something to that effect. So use your own judgment there. But for me, this feels like where I'm at least leaning. Punt at running back. Hope that we get some value there throughout the week, or after going into the weekend. What are your thoughts on this lineup, dude?
Yeah, man, I like it. I think the one decision you kind of got to make here is just, are we punting at running back or punting at wide receiver? So I like this, especially, if Dimebag Darrell is the guy, right, at 3K, he's going to be a solid option. Even if he got 0, man, he's giving you the ability to pay up for pretty solid receiving options. So yeah. I like it either way. You wanna try one maybe with a different running back there?
Yeah, so let's take Dimebag out and let's go from Pearson down to our boy Blake Jackson and see what that gets us. Where are you, Blake? Fuck is he? 8,500, 5,500. So this is where we're running into issues here. So if you look at the player pool, you got Mateo Durant, Jaquez Patrick, John Lovett. Now Lovett is interesting. We saw him get involved a little bit, last week when they were down. You could see some PPR action from Lovett. This is kind of an interesting stack. Hundley, Lovett, Badet, you get some value. But besides Lovett, man, I'm just not super interested in anybody. You do have Raquel Armstead, which is kind of interesting, but he's banged up. I don't think he'll play. This is why I'd rather just go all the way down to 3K at the running back position, right?
Yeah, man.
So where do you want to go? What do you want to change here? Do you want to pull out Tolliver and Latimer and kind of start fresh? Where do you want to go? You sent me a couple lineups. Let's build the lineups that you sent me.
Yeah, let's just start fresh. Put in Hundley, leave Hundley in, and then let's build with Brian Hill.
Okay, cool. I like that. Let's see what happens when you pay up for running back here. So Brian Hill, where do you want to go for wide receivers? We got to get. Do you want to get one of these Seattle guys, or do you want to go Houston, or both?
Well, let's get Badet in for the Hundley stack.
Okay.
And then look, man, I'm gonna do actually a 1v1 here. I want to stack DC and St. Louis. So let's throw in Lucky Jackson and Akeem Butler.
Okay, Butler. Lucky Jackson, where you at, bro? 5,400. You can also obviously go down to Blair, guys like that. All right, so you got 7,800 for 2 spots. You want to put your defense in first, or how you want to handle this?
Let's throw in my boy Lance Noir, Lenoir, Linda, Lance Linda.
Lance Noir. Wait, where are you, bro? Yeah, I like him, man. I think he's looked good. Last week, we had this whole debate in the Discord about Lenore or Eli Rogers. And I was like, well, look, Eli Rogers has kind of proven himself. He's actually lower ownership and he's cheaper. I'd rather go with Eli Rogers. Now, after seeing a week with Lenore, I think he's going to get involved. At 3.3K, man, he's a good value. $4,500. Where are you going with the defense?
Yeah, man, I think you can kind of rotate anything that you want in here. I think you got both. At this point, you can still get.
You can get everybody.
You can get DC. You can get Battlehawks. I like both those. And then if you just want to play the chalk, you throw in Vipers. I don't think you're overstacking too much here. And the good thing is the Vipers is also the second to last game on the slate too. So by having all these people in here and not having, I don't think you're that crazy fading the Thursday night game for cash, right?
Yeah.
You're going to have decent floor players from all the other games. You just may not necessarily have the ceiling. But if you're playing a double up, you want the floor. That's what you need. So
yeah, exactly. All right, let's build tournament lineups. So who you want to go with? You want to go Silvers? You want to go Benvenuti?
Let's go Silvers. I don't even want to build with Ben.
Right.
Well, I guess we should for people watching the show, but Silvers.
All right, Silvers. You want to do a double stack here with the run back?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so we can't do Kirkland and Burnett. So we got to pick one of them, and then we got to go down to like a Bird or Travell Harris, right? So
go Kirkland and Bird, man.
I love it, dude. I love it. Kirkland and Bird. Run it back. Do you want to get like in a tournament? I mean, do you want to go with a guy like Gordon? Do you want to go up to Pearson, or do you want to go with Blake Jackson and just hope you get like 9 receptions out of him?
No, let's go with Pearson.
Let's try it, dude. Let's try it. All right. So let's address our running back position here. We're either going to go all the way in the basement, or we're going to get Ellison. We're going to get we're going to go up to Brian Hill. We're going to go to Abram Smith. Let's make the decision now on that, and then we'll figure out where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, I'm playing Dimebag Darrell, man.
Dimebag Darrell? All right, cool. Screw it. Good, because this actually allows us to do something here. So, do you want to just go? Let's grab the Brahmas first, just to kind of keep us in the right range and see where we're at. 7,400 for this last spot. This is not bad, dude. So we got tons of options here. We got Josh Hammond. You could go Morgan Ellison if you wanted to do 2 running backs. I don't know that I'm doing that. Tolliver. You got so many options. So many options here. Cody Latimer. I'm probably doing like a Tolliver situation here or something. Try to get some of the exposure to that other game. That's not bad. So you got Silvers, Dimebag Darrell, Kirkland, Bird. Then run it back with Pearson, and then you got Tolliver and Brahmas defense. I didn't plan that. Now we could come up off of Brahmas defense with 4,700 if you wanted to go somewhere else. Go to defenders defense, whatever. There's just so many options. Are you hand building your tournament lineups? Because I'm not. I'm optimizing. No. I'm gonna hand build. If I do a handful of lineups in that bigger contest, I'm gonna hand build all those myself. But when it comes to these tournament lineups, I'm definitely optimizing. And when it comes to like projections, you could just make your own projections. Realistically, if you've been doing this for like 4 or 5 weeks, you could probably just kind of figure it out yourself. But I'm aggregating like from 3 or 4 different sources because the projections are just all over the place. I'm not super comfortable with it. All right, do you want to do a crazy ass stack? Do you want to go with our boy Paxton Lynch here?
Yes,
right.
I do.
Lynch, Cody, and you want Lance Lenore here?
Yeah, throw in Lance. And
or do you want Rambo? You want First Blood?
Okay, yeah. Throw in Rambo and put in Dimebag Darrell, man.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
So, like, I think it's important to note here too, like. Sometimes like a free square is a free square. Like if we really expect him to get decent run, right? Don't include him in the stat. He's 3K. Like,
all right, we gotta go Jeff Bidet, right?
yeah, put in Bidet.
Jiminy Christmas. All right, we can do whatever the hell we want here. Realistically, we could absolutely get Pearson, Gordon, Kirkland, whoever the hell we want.
Just put in Pearson and start there.
Yeah. You can always switch out.
Vipers defense.
4,100. You got Battlehawks. Probably don't want to do Vipers defense, but we probably want to pick another game. So, Battlehawks or whoever. Hey, you're a psychopath, but this lineup, you should enter this into the big contest. You really should, because this is a crazy ass lineup that has some high upside. All right, let's try something. Let's try something else here. Let's try. You want to go De'Aaron King?
Yes.
Let's go De'Aaron King and Abram Smith.
Yes. I agree.
Let's run it back with Butler or Hill. Probably Butler. Let's keep with as many wide receivers as we can get, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or you can go Shepard or Prohl, whatever. But Butler's the guy who scores touchdowns. All right, so now that we've got a little game stack here, let's focus in on some other correlation. Do you want to do a 1v1 in that Thursday night game, or do you want to just forget about that game altogether and go with this Orlando Vipers game?
So let's start with Orlando, just because I think we're going to need to throw in Lance as our value.
Okay, you want to go Lance Noir? All right.
Let's do it.
What about Vegas Badette, right?
Well, okay, hear me out. So what if we do this? What if we go Sydney Sweeney here and then pay up for someone in game 1?
Yeah, let's do it, dude. I like that. Let's go with, I mean, look, the safe play here is just Pearson. It always is. And look at that. You got 4,100 just right in that defense zone that we want. But, leave some money on the table. Go with Kirkland. You can go with Kirkland. Anybody from this first game. I really like that. That's really smart. So we got a game stack going with King, Smith, Butler. You got Lenore with Sydney Sweeney, and then you got Kirkland or Pearson. Let's just put Pearson in because it works out pretty good. Let's go with the Brahmas defense probably. Let's pick a game with a low total. You leave $200 on the table. You got De'Aaron King. Maybe he scores you 1 rushing touchdown, 2 extra points, and gets you 50 passing yards. Maybe he falls into the end zone twice. Who knows? But him and Abram Smith together is pretty interesting. You can also throw in with Blair, Lucky Sweeney, Lucky Jackson. All right. Any more lineups we want to build? I think that's pretty much it, right?
Yeah, man. Everything's kind of in a similar price range, and I think we're pretty clear that we're not just paying up for the quarterback position, right? So it's kind of interchangeable. I mean, even Paxton Lynch was only $200 cheaper than De'Aaron King. So you can use that previous lineup as a placeholder, and then fuck it, I don't want to do this. You can switch to Paxton Lynch pretty easily.
Yeah, look, we have a Thursday game, we have 2 Saturday games, and then 1 Sunday game at night. So there's gonna be plenty of opportunity for you to think about where you're at after these games finish. So take advantage of that late swap, especially if you're doing these like any sort of higher dollar contests. What would you suggest for late swap if this first game fails and you got a lot of exposure? You probably just go low owned and try to make up for it, right? You don't want to stick with the high owned studs if any of this first game fails, right?
Well, yeah, so that's another strategy to think about. Like if you're doing cash in GPP, maybe your cash builds focus specifically around game 1, or maybe you fade it entirely so that you can incorporate it maybe 10 to 15% of your lineups in GPP specifically to game 1. So you need to build like that with that in mind. That's why I usually only play Sunday only during the NFL season. But this is different. We only got 4 games, but make sure you have stuff saved for the later games, and it's pretty easy for me because I'm just not going to play Ben DiNucci. So I'm going to be targeting 1v1s the whole time, and already just handpicking not Brett Hundley, but my Silvers lineup.
Yeah, I mean, the ownership is always super concentrated on a handful of people. We've seen all the chalk busts every week. We see these issues. Don't be afraid to just not play those guys if you're not comfortable with them, and obviously have exposure. The way I'm going to do it, like you said, I'm going to go with my expensive lineups, like the smaller contests. I'm going more so with that first game with the ownership. All my tournament lineups, I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to go under the field on those. I'll maybe grab one dude, or maybe a little 1v1, or maybe none, and stack up the rest of those games. Get Orlando, Vegas, get some of the last game on Sunday. I think that is the smart strategy, or just do the opposite, whatever you feel best with. All right, guys. So I think we're going to try to do actually this week, or, next week on Monday, try to do a review show, try to get some guests for that. So make sure you subscribe. Please throw us a like on the way out. If you like our content, please comment down below. Let us know what you like, what you don't like. Give us some notes. Help us out. We appreciate you. We will see you next week. Take it easy.